This year, Disneyland Paris celebrates its 30th anniversary. Since 1992, Disneyland Paris and Walt Disney Studios have brought us some of the biggest, best, and most iconic rides, not just in Europe, but in the world. And it's only going to keep growing over the next 30 years. For the 30th anniversary this year, Disneyland Paris have introduced new merchandise, new food options, a new parade, brought back their nighttime spectacular, and will even be opening a brand new area this year too. So maybe you're thinking about heading to Disneyland to check out these brand new exciting updates. Well, in today's video, I'm going to be showing you the different and best ways to get to Disneyland Paris in 2022. Now of course, some of these options may not be suitable for everyone. For example, you may not want to sit for hours on a coach, you may not drive, or you may hate flying. So I'll be going through all the different options that are available, so you can decide which is the best and the most convenient for you. Now it's no secret that the Disney parks are quite expensive. There are ways you can save money, but we'll leave that for a future video. But in terms of actually getting to the parks, let's look at one of the cheapest options available, and that is to drive to Disneyland Paris. Depending on where you live in the UK, this may be the longest way of getting to the parks, but if you love a good road trip, then nothing will beat a road trip to Disneyland. First of all, although this is probably the cheapest option available, it's still going to cost you quite a lot of money. But if you don't mind the long drive, then it's probably going to be the cheapest and also the most convenient option for you. There are actually two different options of getting into France if you're thinking of driving. So let's start with the Eurotunnel. So you will first need to drive down to Folkestone, which is a port town on the English Channel in the southeast of England. Now it only takes around 35 minutes from Folkestone to Calais, with up to 4 shuttles per hour at peak times. Before you board, you'll go through British and French customs, so that when you arrive, you can drive straight off the train. It will then be around a 3-hour journey from Calais to Disneyland Paris. As I mentioned, this is going to be one of the longest ways of getting to Disneyland Paris. Say if you live somewhere north like Newcastle, it will take around 6 hours to drive to Folkestone, only to drive an additional 3 hours once you arrive in Calais. So just keep that in mind if you're thinking about taking this option. The other option you can take is a ferry. Instead of driving to Folkestone, you will need to drive to Dover, which is another southeastern coastal town. There's around 20 crossings a day with the ferries, and each take around 90 minutes to cross over. What makes this option a little more enjoyable than the Eurotunnel is that there's plenty to do on board, as the ferries have shops and restaurants. So although it might take a little longer to get to Calais than the Eurotunnel, taking a ferry will give you that break from driving to chill out for 90 minutes. Now, I don't drive myself, so this has never been an option for me, but if I did drive, I would definitely consider it. Not only is it one of the cheapest options, it also gives you the freedom to go and leave at whatever time you like, whereas the other options such as the train or flying, you have a specific departure time. Finally, although driving will probably be your cheapest and most convenient option, you do need to keep in mind the additional costs such as fuel, so just keep that in mind when you're deciding the option you're going to take. Next up, let's talk about another one of the cheaper options available, but along with that it's also going to be the longest way of getting to Disneyland Paris, and that is by taking a coach. Driving down to Folkestone or Dover might be a long journey for you, depending on where you live in the UK. But somewhere that may be closer or more accessible is London. If you can make it down to London, then there are a few different options for you to take if you want to head to Disneyland Paris. And first up, let's talk about taking a coach. Now if you take the Europe bus, there's 3 coaches per day which head straight to Disneyland Paris, and it's only £96 for a return, which isn't bad at all. The only thing is, it isn't a direct coach. So unlike say the Eurostar, you won't board in London and be dropped straight off at your hotel. You will have to hop onto another bus at Paris Charles de Gaulle Airport. I'm terrible at French, so if I said any of that incorrectly, then I do apologise, and the same goes for any other French words coming up later in this video too. After arriving at Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris, you need to change to the VEA's shuttle coach. VEA's coaches run from the same station and terminal as the Eurolines, so changing to another vehicle isn't a big issue. The bus from the airport to Disneyland Paris is only around 45 minutes. The main negative from taking the coach is that it is a very long journey. The coaches leave at 8 AM, 8 PM and 10 PM each day, and takes around 8 to 9 hours to arrive in Paris. So overall it's probably going to take you around 10 hours each way. So of course it's going to be a very long journey, but if you want to save money and you don't mind a long journey, then it's definitely an option to consider. Next up, let's talk about my personal favourite and the most convenient way of getting to Disneyland Paris, and that is by taking the Eurostar. What I love the most about the Eurostar is that it takes you directly to Disneyland Paris. You get on the train in London, and before you know it, you're outside the gates of the park. And unlike taking the coach, it takes under 3 hours. Of course, this is a more expensive option, but if you don't mind paying that extra, it's a much more quicker way of getting to the parks. One downside to the Eurostar is that it only departs 3 times a week, and there's only one train on each of these days, so you're quite restricted in when you can visit and return. However, there is the other option where you can board a train to Paris and then take the different metro services to the parks. This is a more frequent option, however it's less convenient as you don't get dropped off directly at Disneyland. I took this option on my last trip to Disneyland Paris, and I did find it a little bit confusing, so I'll go through all the different steps if you are considering it. First of all, you board the Eurostar from London to Gare du Nord in Paris. Once you get off the Eurostar, follow the signs to the RER services. You will then need to buy an RER ticket to get to Disneyland Paris, which isn't too expensive. On our last visit, it was around €8 for an adult ticket. You then get the B line towards Chalet Les Halles, which will take you around 3 minutes. Once you've arrived, you will then need to board the RER A towards Disneyland Paris. You'll be able to see which is the correct one, as on the board, Marne-le-Vallée will have little Mickey ears next to it. This journey will take around 45 minutes. Overall, this isn't the most convenient, and if you're new to it like I was, then it can be a little bit stressful, especially when you're not the best at speaking French, which I'm sure you can all agree I am not. But having said that, it's more frequent than the direct Eurostar, so it's definitely an option to consider. Not only that, you may save a little more taking this option too, compared to the direct route, so be sure to keep that in mind. Finally, let's talk about flying to Disneyland Paris, and of course if you're coming from overseas, then this will be your only option. Now I won't be able to give you an exact price, and I won't be able to tell you how long it will take to get to the parks, as it all depends on where you're flying from. But having said that, flying can be one of the cheaper options, and there's plenty of deals out there throughout the year from different airline companies. Once you arrive at the airport, there's also a shuttle bus similar to the one that you can find at Disney World, which will take you directly to your hotel if you're staying at Disney property. I have never taken this option personally, but I would definitely consider it because it's one of the quicker and cheaper ways of getting to the parks. So now we've gone through all the different travel options available, let me know down in the comments below which you're thinking of taking. Or if you've been to Disneyland Paris recently and want to share your experience, then also let me know down in the comments below because I would love to hear your thoughts, and it will be great for other viewers to check them out. Personally, I love taking the Eurostar because it's the most convenient for me, but in future I would consider the other options because they're all good in their own way. But that is it for this video. I really hope you found it useful, and if you want to go check out some of my other theme park and adventure videos, then be sure to hit that subscribe button because there is plenty of videos on the channel already, and there'll be plenty more to come too. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next one.